Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the R Squared podcast. My name is Rajat. Rishi? Rishi,
Sorry,
well, we definitely, I think we'll definitely
sorry,
keep
sorry.
this in. We're definitely keeping this in.
I was zoned out there.
She's just staring
Um,
at uh,
yes, it is I, your boy Rishman over here.
And today, joining me and Rishi is Mr. David Coelho, who is a cloud architect for a firm that we can't name due to legal reasons. But yes, David, thanks for coming on.
Hi, yes. Thank you for having me. I want to say what an honor it is to be on your podcast. Been listening to you for a whole 4 weeks now, so very
Thanks.
honored.
Thanks. That makes 3 listens in total for our podcast. It's you, me, and Rishi. So good to know.
Great.
It does
Great.
help.
Great.
Does help.
Full audience here.
Yes. So David, as I said, you're a cloud architect. So can you explain in layman's terms what is the cloud?
Yeah, sure. So I think the cloud is something that's always been around. It's become more prevalent, people talking about it more now just because it's been so industrialized now by a couple of firms. So the cloud is essentially just like a network of servers. So, they're kept in data centers and we use it to like deliver data and services, and it's all done via the internet. So as long as you have a good internet connection, you can connect to the cloud and have kind of a good service running. How it works is, as I said, like there are data centers, and now it's been industrialized by Amazon, Google, and I think what's the last one? Azure, Microsoft. So the three of them sort of really control the whole market. Amazon mainly, but together the three of them I think have 95% of the cloud market together. The way they do this is they own a lot of data centers all over the world. A key to having a good cloud connection is being the data center being very close to you, because being close as you're connecting over the internet, you need good latency, so you need to connect over to it quickly. So these companies have data centers all over the world, and then based on where you are, they'll obviously put you on the closest data center to you, closest tenant, and that way it's able to control the market by offering good services, high quality services, and cheap services. Cheaper than all these big firms having to host it themselves. So previously, what firms used to do is they'd either go to some like data centers and they'd manage their own server racks in those data centers, which would have a lot of overhead, obviously, because they'd have to get staff for the data center, manage the servers. Or what a lot of the companies used to do before is on the ground or basement floor of their own buildings, they'd have huge server racks, and that would be how they control their own technology, like their own whole all their tech that's running in their company would be on the server racks. So then they have to worry about maintenance, keeping it cold because that's very important. Server racks overheat. So all that kind of overhead was there, which is now moved on because all this responsibility is taken by the cloud providers. So that's essentially the reason it's being built out now. But the cloud, as simple terms, is essentially a rack of servers that you connect to over the internet. That's what the cloud is.
Let me just ask you one thing over there. But then, okay, you're saying there's no, cost saving is much higher. But then if you do it over, their cloud offerings, isn't the subscriptions more than if you do it in house? And also security wise, isn't it better to have it in house?
No, okay. So yeah, these are two actually very good points. So the costing one, no, it does work out. Okay, depends on your use case. If you're a bigger company, it works out a lot cheaper going to them, because as a big company, especially one that's growing, you don't know how big or how much service you're going to need. So what you get with the big providers is that kind of flexibility, because you subscribe and you pay to what you want when you want and you're using it. So that way you can scale up and down as you want. So as your company say gets more, or you want more resource, you pay for that. When you want less, you pay for less. Whereas if you're maintaining your own stacks in house, you have to buy the physical servers connected in. So you're set to that. If you want to scale up, you'll have to buy new, and then you can't scale down because you've already bought the equipment. You have it. You're
Yeah, yeah.
keeping it. You need to
That
put
makes
it there.
sense.
So that helps in a lot of way. But then you are right where if you are a firm that's consistent, it's better to actually stay off the cloud because it can end up working more expensive for you. So I've actually spoken to some people recently who work at companies where they don't have their cloud. They maintain their own server racks because it's a travel agency company. One of my uncle works for them, so he works there, and he said for them it doesn't make sense to go to the cloud. So he works as a DB administrator for them and a Linux administrator for them. So he maintains their server racks. He does the kind of in-house networking for them, and he manages that for the company because they know they don't want to grow. They won't grow too much more and stuff. So they want to keep that. They've already had that physical investment in the equipment from previously. So for them, it just makes more sense to continue keeping that rather than invest in moving to the cloud. The security aspect now is a very important one, especially for me, because over the last 3 years before I transitioned into architecture, I was doing cloud security. So it's kind of a topic very close to what I know. So the security aspect, you're correct, because all your data is stored on the servers, right? So if you have the servers in house with you, you're like protected. No one else can touch it and stuff like that. Whereas when you're with Amazon, you're trusting them. So, however, Amazon does have a shared responsibility model with all its customers. The main thing they kind of sell out there, where if you go with them, your data that is stored with them, they are responsible for and they take responsibility for on the server racks. You are responsible of how you use the cloud. So in the cloud, you can configure your services the way you want, right? So you're responsible of the security of your data in there. But once it's in their database, they give you that guarantee that they'll protect it. So it's with them. There are things customers can do as well to alleviate the pain. So what happens is when data goes into servers, you can encrypt them and you encrypt them with keys. So if you use your own key, it's called customer managed key. So like in our company, we make sure that any data we store with Amazon is encrypted with a customer managed key. What that means is you use your key to encrypt the data that's on their databases. So if their servers are ever stolen, someone has direct access to it or whatever, your data is encrypted with that key that you own. So no one will be able to access the data, not even Amazon, because you have the decryption key with you. Does
And
All
that kind
right.
of track?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's
yeah, yeah.
very
So
detailed.
that's
Nice.
the way you kind of protect the data you keep on Amazon side.
who in the company has access to this key? Is it like a team or like one specific
Yeah,
person?
yeah.
Or...
So no, yeah, yeah. So the key, it depends company to company. So some companies store it as online keys. So like in my team, in my company, because I was part of the security team for the last 3 years, we kept the keys. So any keys that encrypted any of our data across all our accounts, all our services, we manage those keys. So only our roles had access to those keys. So it would be a virtual key. And we also could have hardware keys. So in our company, we don't really do that right now. But what you can do is you can uh, order a hardware token and you store the keys on there and keep it in the safe. So we also have a safe that we manage where we kind of keep all our kind of encrypted credentials and keys in there.
Okay. And your role is an architect now. So what actually does a cloud architect do? Because think my understanding of a
Mm-hmm.
general architect is very
Yes.
different.
Oh yes, yes. I've listened to your previous podcast about
Yeah.
someone who didn't go into that because they
Yeah.
were wanting to get married. Yeah, yeah.
Correct,
I heard
correct.
about that. Yes. But no, this is very very different architecture to that. So when we talk about architecture in technology and cloud in general, it's basically when a new service wants to come in. So say you want to build. So say you're a company, you want to build a new product for your offering. So for us, say it's to build a new form for customers to send their feedback or something. That end-to-end process of how the form will be built from the application to where the data will be stored and what technologies you use through the middle, that all needs to be architectured in terms of how the tech stack sits. So that's essentially what an architect does. He will build the sort of foundations of how like the tech will flow to make sure that that product that you're bringing in works.
So do
And
you have
then the
to do a lot
engineers
of
go on
coding?
and then build it. So not really. So it depends. So architect roles vary from company to company. In our company, sometimes depending on the architect, we tend to get involved with the engineers as well. So when they're doing the coding, but how it works is you architect the system, you put the services, how they'll talk to each other, like how it's going to be built out. And then when the actual elements of each thing is being built out, the engineers do that. So they're the ones that do most of the coding work for it. That's how the architectural stack kind of builds out.
Interesting, interesting. So
So you need to understand code, but not really do a lot of code because obviously when you're architecting it, you need to make sure it works, right? Like it's going to work, it's going to make sense, and then that's why you need to understand like the principles of the technology and if it can be done, and then the engineers will work on the code for it.
And I mean, so what are some of the main principles? As in, what are some of the, I guess, the standardized things that you're looking for when architecting, if that's the word.
Oh, well, no, yeah, no, that's a good point. I guess it depends. So depending on the company, they'll have their own set of principles. One thing as an architect you really need to do, and which has been a good transition for me, is think about security from early on.
Mm.
A lot of people, when you architect something, they don't think about security early, only at the end phase of a project or program, and then it's hard to build in the security checks into the sort of application because you haven't built it to say take on that technology or think about that technology. So one good thing an architect needs to think about from the start is the security of it. So when I say security of it, I mean like, things like privilege management, so who can access the system, how that's going to be managed to make sure only the right people have access to the system, how you're going to have checks on like the network layer to ensure you have like good endpoint detection. So that's like if someone tries to attack it, that you have a tool that's looking for it. If someone's in doing stuff, how you can isolate your network, and basically a lot of security elements across the stack need to be thought about. So security needs to be key when you're architecting a system from the start. That's one. And then the other is more sort of just governance and guardrails. So depending on the organization you work in, they'll have different standards you need to meet when you're building something. So you need to follow those standards that are set out in terms of governance of technology as a whole. Like, um, I guess the way to explain it is sort of like there'll be many ways to do something, but if a company has a set way in place and they want you to only use it, like maybe it's use a particular technology. So say if you're using APIs, you need to use a certain framework where everything goes into your main kind of API network gateway, right? So an API is an application key, sort of like that's how you connect to different things over a network, right? Um, so if they have a set standard for that, you need to make sure everything you architect follows that standard for any kind of network or API keys that you're using. So that's the sort of things you need to think about, and it's all very dependent on the company you work in to set out those standards that you'll do.
I guess it's just to allow uniformity in the procedure and also makes it easier for anyone new to also use it as well, right?
That is exactly it. So when you have that sort of standard governance across the board, when you're bringing in new services or when you're trying to figure something out, if everything's built the same way, it makes it easier. And that actually reminds me as well. Another key one is documentation. That's so key, and many people don't do it properly. Is whenever you're building a new system, a new service, document, document, document. Every little thing as well. It's key to document, especially in a world where we work in so much technology, and we work with a lot of consultants in technology, especially firms. When consultants change, or when you, because there's so much change happening all the time, and it's something we've recently experienced because there were a change of consultants where you need to have everything documented, so when the new people come in, they can understand what that system is, then take it over. And you need to document it like to the key. Like you'd think sometimes like even the basic things like click a button and stuff should not be on there, like click this button and click that, like even for that, even that basic level of detail you need to go in the documentation.
Okay.
Interesting.
And in terms of, so you mentioned previously that the big cloud companies. So the main ones are AWS, right? AWS, Azure,
Yes,
and Google
so
Cloud, right?
Google Cloud, yeah, yeah.
Right. So what differences? Because if I'm not wrong, is it AWS who are the biggest one? Is that
Market,
correct?
yeah, yeah. So AWS are the
Yeah.
market leaders. So we currently in our company use them as well, and they're the
Yeah.
market leaders. I think they are mainly the market leaders because of their offerings.
But
So
is this globally? Are they the
yeah,
leaders globally?
yeah.
Oh wow. Okay.
So they have most of the market, if I'm not mistaken. It might be dwindling slightly now because I know Microsoft or Azure offerings are getting a lot better, and they're trying to. Azure has been quite smart. They're giving their offerings as part of their already Microsoft suite as well to a lot of companies, so that really helps them because obviously Microsoft is already all over, right? Everyone's using it. Like
But
even
let
we
me
use
ask
it even
you,
though we're on
what
AWS, so
about
they're trying.
Elon Musk's Starlink? Is he going to join this race?
No, no, no. So that's completely different. So Starlink is more like satellites, if I'm not mistaken, right? Starlink is more like
But
internet
isn't
provider.
he?
So Elon provides the internet. He doesn't have cloud services.
No, but isn't he building a database center as well in US?
He might be building a data center because, as you said, like the one you put earlier, right? So the data he has from all his SpaceX and everything is quite important. So he might not want to store that data on Amazon and Google and
All
Microsoft
right.
because then they have. So he probably is building databases to store his own data. But no, Starlink as a service, they provide internet. They don't provide cloud services. So they'll provide you the internet to connect to AWS, Google, Azure,
They're
but they
above the
won't. Yeah,
cloud, but they don't give you the cloud.
exactly. Wow, that what a way to put it.
What a quote.
Amazing,
What a quote.
amazing. Yeah,
Amazing.
wow. You might that you need to reach out to Elon. He could probably use that now. Wow.
He'll send me some Dogecoin over here,
uh,
Yeah, so you're talking about the
yeah.
offerings, right, between the
Yes. So the offerings are very different. So from what I've seen currently in the industry is that as a service provider and to get the best service, AWS seems to be the best to go with now because they have such a huge suite of resources. What the cloud does as well, once you're within them, of course, you can still use offerings from elsewhere, just connecting to your cloud. But what AWS have done is within their AWS cloud as well, they create a lot of thing called managed services. So managed services are sort of like services that AWS will do for you inbuilt in the cloud. So it's very easy to subscribe to rather than you creating a whole new like creating your own service for it, basically. Um, Say an example of this I can give you for managed service is sort of let me think. What's a good managed service we have? Kind of a good way to explain it rather than using a separate. Okay, so like for malware protection, right? So what malware protection is like you probably heard like you have Windows Defender, Avast antivirus, and have you seen those? So those what they do is they check your computer for any viruses or malware. So similar for us, since we run a lot of instances, so in Amazon it's called EC2 instances. These are your servers essentially that run your whole workloads. So we have like over 1,000 servers running in our state, EC2 instances. So these need to be constantly checked for malware, right? Because they're running. We need to make sure anything running on there doesn't have any viruses, any malware running. So as a security team, we need to be sure it's protected. So obviously there's a lot of third party providers that do this. So there's things like Bitdefender, there's the Avast antivirus I talked about, and all these different ones that do malware protection. So they do a lot of malware protection. So that's an offering. You can go buy it as a third party, bring it into your system, and use it. Obviously, that would be expensive and all that kind of stuff as well. What
Just
AWS have
sorry,
done,
sorry. 1 second, just before I forget, just because you
yeah.
mentioned viruses a lot. I've seen a lot of people say, and a lot of classic reels talk about the fact
Hmm.
that if you download antivirus softwares onto your computer, they're more likely to, bring in viruses and problems into your computer than not having it or having your inbuilt one already. I don't know. What's your opinion on that?
No, it depends. If you're downloading a free one, then yeah, probably. If you click on those pop-ups when you're watching your illegal streams as well, then yes, probably. But if you go with the trusted providers where they offer a paid service for it, you're more than likely to be more protected than not. Yeah. So yeah, as long as you trust the provider, you can Google them, research them before you download, you should be fine. Uh, yeah. So yeah, carrying on with earlier. So as I was saying, so what AWS does then, right, is they've seen this market and they're like, cool, this is somewhere we can make money. So what they do is they'll probably reach out to some antivirus provider, either buy them or partner with them. And then in-house within AWS Cloud itself, they offer this malware protection. So now for us, what we can do is there's this tool called Guard Duty. We just opt into that tool. So buy the subscription from Amazon for that tool. Literally go on a Amazon console, click one button that configures it, and it's running across all our instances. So we have instant malware protection across all our servers and one like board or one sort of UI to view it. So if there's anything it picks up, anything it sees suspicious, we can see it on that board. And it does that all in a one click of a button, rather than us going have to buy a provider, get them installed into our instance, then create like a whole interface to get that data out so it views it or connect to a console. Amazon has done all this with just a click of a button for its providers. So that's one of the examples of how it's really speeding up and easing this. And for them, they're making money. Like this service is not free, right? We're still paying. If we're paying, if not the same, to maybe a little bit less, a little bit more. We've never really done a full cost comparison, but it's ease for us, right? Because to buy a third provider, they'll be license free, then we'll have to pay to learn how to integrate it and stuff. And then we'll have to pay for the overhead, which is like constantly updating the virus signatures, constantly updating the product. So there's a lot of like overhead with managing this ourselves. Whereas with Amazon, if we pay them and click a button, we don't have to worry about anything. They've taken responsibility of sort of updating it all for us. So that's one example of how that managed service helps. So like that, there's a lot of offerings from all these cloud providers, which is why people go with them. Amazon themselves have the most offering, which is good. Azure is building up now because, as I said, Azure is offering very good inbuilt stuff with Outlook, things like that. And also Azure's security suite, so their security tooling is a lot more advanced than AWS is currently
Wait,
because
sorry.
Microsoft
Let me let
itself
me
used
let
to
me
do security a lot before.
let me just jump in 1 second. So, uh, help me understand one thing, whereby like the difference between cloud and AWS with regards to applications like Excel, Microsoft Office, Outlook, like you just mentioned.
Hmm.
Those systems there. What's happening there if you say switch from the cloud to AWS when or general usage of working is with say Word, and all these things. What
Okay,
happens
I
then?
think I think it's two separate things. So what? So like when you say switching between cloud to AWS, right? Your cloud would have been already a data center. So what? So like I'll give example my company before. So our company was we've moved to AWS and stuff before. Previously, we were still in the cloud, as you call it, but just in a private cloud. So how that works is Fujitsu used to offer services through their data centers. So via Fujitsu, we used to connect into Fujitsu's data centers and use their services for our cloud. So they were offering that. So I said we have a lot of instances on AWS right now. It was basically Fujitsu offering that. They didn't have all these managed services and stuff on top of it, which is why it caused a lot of like hassle to create other things around it. But in the simple terms, our cloud was still there before. It was just something we used through Fujitsu. So Fujitsu offered the cloud on their data centers, and we connect via the internet. So that's what people mean when you're saying cloud to AWS. Now your point about Microsoft Excel and things like that, now that's completely sort of different. Microsoft Excel, Word, all that kind of stuff are softwares, and you install the software into your computer. So all the data from it is stored in. But when you're talking about like using the OneDrive and things like that, now that's different. So that's you're using Excel, you're using Word that's installed in Azure's cloud environment, so Microsoft's cloud environment, and you're using it via there. And any data you store in the cloud and stuff is stored in Azure,
No,
like
so
Microsoft's
that's
data
what I'm
centers.
saying. Like, if yes, you have these applications, you're using Microsoft data centers, but currently
Hmm.
I'm assuming there's no integration between these softwares and AWS, right?
Uh, no, it depends. It's hard to split. So when you say integration, do you mean like being able to use Microsoft on AWS or?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, no, you're allowed to. So basically, how what AWS does is it provides you the infrastructure, right? So if you're using AWS as the infrastructure, so say when you set up your EC2 instances, so EC2 instances are your compute power. Those are your servers. On your servers, when you're building the server, on the top layer, you can just build a Microsoft tenant. So you can build a Microsoft virtual machine on that AWS instance. So even though it's on AWS cloud, you're building your own Microsoft virtual machine there, and then you can use your Word, whatever. You can use Word in anything, right? It's like how on a Mac you can use it. It all comes down to licensing. You'll still have to get your license for Excel, still get your license for
Right,
Word and stuff, and you can still use it. So that cross integration is there. It depends on how going AWS doesn't mean you're not using anything Microsoft. That's not how you got to think about it. It's just you're using AWS's data centers as your main core infrastructure to sit on. And then on top of it, you can build whatever you want. That's up to you. You can have a full on Microsoft suite running on your AWS infra
right.
tenant.
Interesting, interesting,
But
interesting.
the only difference is you pricing and stuff might be a little bit more. So yeah, but I think Microsoft, their security suite now is getting very good. That's why a lot of people are moving more towards them. So, I was talking about managed services. Microsoft's managed services for security are a lot more advanced than AWS's is right now because they've been doing it for a long time. Because Microsoft as a company has been there for a while, right? And they've been doing security for a while as well. So they have a lot better security offering than AWS.
So is that basically what's setting these companies apart in terms of the number of offerings and also the quality? Is that basically the main differentiator?
I think I think those are the main two, and then also it comes to sort of like I guess politics and who's better at sales
Ah,
because they have the sales representatives and stuff, right? So it depends who they go to, who in the governments they contact, how they get like all that kind of stuff. So all that comes into play as well, even with the big firms, right? Like with all your big kind of financial companies or anything of that sort, it would depend on whose sales pitch is the best of them. But what's also more interesting now is there's a two fact kind of thing happening. A lot of people talk about resiliency now. You've probably heard the term come up a lot. So it's being able to kind of withstand any faults or things that happen. So because of resiliency, a lot of people are now building the risk where, okay, if you're fully on Amazon, what happens if Amazon go down? Or what happens if Amazon just tells you to like sod off or you get thingy and stuff? You can't be fully reliant on them. So a lot of companies now are moving to a multi-cloud strategy. So what that means is you have two clouds running. You have two clouds essentially, and have your things ready to be running on two clouds. That way, if any issues were to happen, you are always able to switch between the clouds. Obviously, that's easier said than done, right? Like I said, there's a lot of things you need to consider and go into it. But I think this plays into hands of a lot of the companies because to be able to be multi-cloud, you need to reserve that kind of capacity in both clouds. And obviously, cloud providers are going to charge you to reserve that capacity. So even if you're not using it, they'll still charge you for it, and you're still paying on that small likelihood that you have to move to.
But it's just a backup, right? Like it's a
Yeah.
secondary backup,
It's a
and you can
backup,
do
but
it.
you're paying for that backup. That's the thing. And
Yeah,
also it's
fair
hard
enough.
because I said, like, yes, the kind of offerings from the different cloud providers are the same, but the technicalities of actually getting your service running on them is different. So it's not going to be as easy as just, clicking a switch to move between the cloud providers. You need to have a whole detailed plan in place. But that being said, um, Amazon, I know, like, for a lot of their service and a lot of their offerings, they promise 99.99% availability. So, it doesn't get a lot more fault tolerant than that.
Sure. And what is the cost? Do you know what roughly the cost is between those three main providers?
Oh, and no, it's hard to gauge the cost because the
Ah,
cost really depends on how
right,
much you use it.
right.
Yeah, how much,
And
yeah, yeah. And I think in terms of pricing, from what I've read, they're all pretty similar. There's
What
no
what's
big difference.
what would you use? What would you prefer to use?
I mean, my answer will be biased because like, over the last 4 years now, I've been mainly using AWS, and I have the most knowledge in that. So I would obviously say AWS. I
Oh,
haven't used
very
this. I
interesting.
I haven't used Azure a lot. I've done like one course on it to understand the basics, but I haven't used it a lot, like in my day-to-day role. So it'd be very hard for me to say. That's why I'd obviously say AWS because that's where all my experience sits in.
okay.
Um,
And you also said that there are different technicalities behind implementing in the different cloud systems. So then, does that mean that, let's say you're really well versed with AWS, but let's say you move
mhm.
to another company where they use Azure, and so would you have to
Yeah, yeah.
go through a whole new learning curve to learn how to?
No, so there would be aspects of it, but not whole new learning curve. Because how it works is the basic principles behind all the service offerings from the different cloud providers are the same. So the principles will always stay the same. It's just the way it's configured in the different cloud environments might be different. So it's learning new terminologies, so that might confuse you a bit, but the way it works is the same. And there might be some aspects of how it's configured that's different, but the basics should be the same. So no, I don't think the learning curve is very steep if you move between. It's just getting that understanding.
Okay. And also, you talked about the sort of the transferring from, for example, your company transfer from Fujitsu to AWS. How easy is it
Yes.
to transfer across different cloud providers? And did
Cloud Cloudberry.
AWS, for example, make it easy for that
Yeah,
to
yeah. So
transfer?
all cloud service providers have an offering that they do to help you transfer that data. Yeah, yeah. So AWS themselves, in fact, they have this. Oh, I forgot the name, but it's very cool because depending on how you want to transfer data, before when big firms were doing it, it's called Amazon Snow. I can't remember, but they have these huge trucks that they send to your old data centers, like massive trucks. You transfer the data into that truck, and then they take it to Amazon, and then put your data back onto there. Yeah, massive truck. I forgot. It's a really cool name for them, but yeah, I can't remember. But yeah, that's one of the offerings they did, like a huge truck. Not only that, they do it too because, as I told you previously, like a lot of firms had their data centers in their buildings, so they'd offer the service where that truck would come to your building, take all your data, and then they'd go and put it in their data center.
But that's
But
pretty cool. Like you get the option to do it, in house, and then if you want to move on to the cloud, they offer that.
yeah,
That's pretty
you
cool. I
can.
didn't know that.
No, yeah, exactly. That's pretty cool. But only thing is, like, these old companies like Fujitsu and stuff, they make it a bit harder to exit because obviously they're losing clients, so they'll always come up with issues and things like that when you're moving, if your data's on there. But in principle, it is very, I wouldn't say straightforward, but it is possible, and they make it easier. Moving to a cloud is a bit of a work. So I wasn't at my current company when they moved. So I think they started the moving in around 2015, 2016 to AWS. So I came when they were towards the end of what they call the data center exit. That's what companies call it. It's when they're moving out of the data center completely into whatever cloud tenant they're providing. So I came towards the end of it. But I know the process of migrating that exit was quite long because you have all your services running in the data center, right? So you can't do a full lift and shift. You move each service at a time. So you move the data for the service, and then you move that service, and you configure that service, you architect that service, get it working in Amazon. Once that's done, then you do a service at a time, sort of like that. So it was it's quite a journey, and it depends on how many services you have running as a company. If it's just your in-house kind of one service, just your people and stuff, that's fine. But if you have a lot of outward-facing applications and stuff that people use, all of those need to be sort of transferred and moved over. Uh, the cloud providers are really good in also storing data. They offer you various kind of models of data storing, so it makes it cheaper for you. So if you have data that you, for regulatory or compliance reasons, need to keep for long, they'll offer you like cold storage, which is storage you can't access regularly, and the charge will be like minute, maybe a couple of dollars or cents for like TVs of data, but you can't access it for like unless you really need it. So they put in cold storage, and then for data that you frequently need, you can store it like closer in terms of they call it S3 buckets and stuff like that, or and you can store it closer where you can frequently access it then. And this pricing is a little bit higher for that because obviously you're making more API calls and stuff to retrieve that data. So it's all
Wait,
like
sorry,
very well
sorry.
done.
I don't understand exactly the difference between the two. You're saying cold
Hmm.
storage and the other one,
Yeah, yeah. So
whereas
yeah, go
yeah,
on.
sorry.
No, no, so basically what it means is like say you collect a lot of like data, right? So say one piece of data you collect is everyone's activity that they've done on a certain website that you have, like in-house application or website that you have. Any of the actions that they've done on there, you need to
Hey,
store for
dangerous things.
yeah.
But yes, carry on. Sorry.
you, for compliance reasons, say compliance or regulatory reasons, they tell you you need to keep it for 2 years because anyone can do like an FOI request or something and get that data, or you can do FOI request for people's actions on a website. But yeah, you get
That
what I mean. So like
FI is a freedom of information. Is that correct?
yes, freedom of information. So they can make that sort of a request and stuff for data. So for any data that's say relevant to that your website data, you need to keep as a company. But other than if someone makes it, you don't need to regularly access it, right? Because it's useless information to you. So then you send it to cold storage, right? It's like you can't, yeah, as I said, you can't regularly go and search that data or like index that data or whatever. You can't search that data, but it's there if you ever need it. So you put it in a place where no regular access, it's there. It'll be a cheaper model because you're accessing it less from that side, so it's less like API calls, less traffic going to that data. So it costs Amazon less, so they'll charge you less to keep that data. Whereas if you
Right.
have other data that you're frequently accessing, like as you good example, you're working on Word documents and stuff, multiple, and you're storing that in the cloud. You need to access those every other day, maybe once a week, once a month. You store those in sort of a different type of storage class because you can access it more frequently, but you're charged more for that because you're accessing it more. So that they offer different levels of sort of data storage as well that helps customers get their finances better, like because it's cheaper, obviously, rather than storing all the data, right? To be
So now,
frequently
yeah.
accessed.
So now, in terms of these data centers, because you mentioned previously, like you would automatically connect to whichever the closest data center is, and then you
Mm,
mentioned like Amazon, they come in big trucks, and now see they're transporting the data.
they can,
So
yeah.
let's say, for example, because you're working in London, let's say in London, how widely spread are, let's say, databases in London?
Okay, so well, one thing is Amazon and all the providers, they give no information to anyone about where they locate their data centers, obviously.
Ah,
So for like
interesting.
security, because their data centers are classed as critical national infrastructure. So none of their locations are published or anyone's allowed to know where they are. So in terms of exact locations, they don't give that out, any of the providers. So Amazon in general, London is actually a new offering. So they've only started London data centers for a couple of years now. One of the main reasons they started it actually is post Brexit. So basically, post Brexit, as you know, there's a lot of compliance reasons to do with data. So post Brexit, a lot of companies want to store their data only in London, not even in EU. So because of that, Amazon has started an offering in London now. Previously, Amazon's biggest offering was Ireland. So they have a lot of data centers in Ireland. Ireland is one of their biggest hubs. So in Ireland, they have a lot of data centers, and then they have a lot scattered across EU as well, in Europe. So
Sorry, what's
Amazon,
the reason for Ireland? Like, just curious.
It's for
Why they? I
tax.
know they love the Guinness, but
It's tax.
oh, okay, the tax, not the Guinness. Fair enough.
there's tax, and also for data centers, it's you're more likely to do it. I guess that's one reason, but you need a lot of space essentially. You don't do it
Uh,
in cities and stuff because there's a lot of first you need good links to those the interlink cables that they have, the internet cables, as wires for fiber optics. So you need that, and you need to keep it very cold. Data centers get extremely hot with all the servers, so you need to keep it cold. So you need to be in an area where you can get like good electricity, good water flow, and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of things I need to consider, and then because, as I said, the only thing that can actually disrupt a data center is like natural calamities, so like floods, earthquakes, things like that. So they pick locations based on that, where it's like not too low to sea level, so it has to be high, and no earthquake chance,
All
all that kind of
right.
stuff needs to be taken
Interesting.
into consideration. But yeah, Amazon has loads of data centers all over, and I mentioned resiliency. So when they build out the data centers, when you select some of their services are known as what they're called multiple availability zones and multiple regions. So that means that if any data center or something was to go wrong for any reason, it would instantly port over to one of their different data centers and your service would still be running. So that's how kind of slick and quick their system is, where when you
Wow.
use their services and offerings, they can switch you just like that, but they'll keep you within your region for obvious compliance reasons. Most of Amazon's regions, so Amazon do it based on region, most of their regions and most of their offerings are actually in the US region for obvious reasons, right? It's in the US regions.
Just by the way,
Uh,
you should send this video to them. You know, you should get some commission from them. I mean, you've really spoken well about them. I think, and of course, do share some to us. You know, we are
Yeah.
we're here.
Yeah. See if they can sponsor the podcast.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, we'll try. In
or
fact,
maybe
next week. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, maybe we get Microsoft or Google to sponsor, so we talk more about them.
Talk
You know.
more about them. Yeah,
Yeah.
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 Ah,
Why
yeah,
not?
Yeah.
yeah.
I know. I think
No,
that.
no, we're not
I
biased,
think.
people. We're not biased at all.
I think that really be sold by the whole three viewers. You know.
Yeah.
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 It's a
Yeah.
start.
But Amazon, they actually have a. Sadly, I didn't get picked for my company to go, but a few people from our company are going next week to Vegas because they do every year. Amazon do a thing called reInvent, which is like their big show. They like bring out their new services, what their offerings and stuff. So like last year, the big news was that they partnered with Nvidia and they were offering like a lot of Nvidia resources through their AWS cloud. So I told you get servers, right? So you could get servers running the Nvidia stuff to run your like LLM models and AI models and things like that. So Amazon's AI capability is quite good now. But yeah, last year they announced they partnered with Nvidia. So this year they have another reInvent in Vegas running from Tuesday to Friday next week. And yeah, it's going to be a similar thing. They'll
Oh,
announce
wow.
all their new services, all their new offerings, all who all they've partnered with and stuff. It's a whole big show.
Yeah. So that would be
That's
like
pretty cool.
first week of December, right? Because when this episode comes
Yes.
out, it won't
Oh
be
yes,
next
that's
week.
true.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's crazy because I think if I'm not wrong, I feel like AWS is the biggest revenue thing of Amazon. I think they're
Oh,
right. Their retail is not
it's
even
crazy. Yeah,
compared
I
to.
think if I'm not mistaken, at some point Amazon used to run their retail service at a loss.
Oh wow. Okay.
I remember reading this
Hmm.
report where Amazon actually ran it at a loss just so they could sort of what you call it, outbid competition and
Or like
stuff like that.
undercut, like
Yeah,
undercuts.
and
Yeah.
yeah, and stuff
Yeah.
because the amount of revenue they make from AWS services is already just insane.
Crazy.
Yeah, the AWS is by far, I think 70%, 60-70% of their overall
Right.
revenue for
All
AWS.
right,
Yeah,
did
yeah,
not know
definitely
Crazy.
more
that.
than half.
That's crazy.
Oh yeah, dude, the amount of money that they make off clients, like obviously they give this flexibility offering and stuff, but my God, the amount of money. I wouldn't be surprised if like the bills for a lot of like finance firms and stuff for AWS are in the 200-300 millions easily a year.
Wow,
What?
wow.
Oh wow.
That's
Yeah, yeah.
that's in
Easy,
pounds, right?
easy. Yes, easily for
Jeez,
the big
that's
financial
mad.
firms. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Yeah.
in shillings, we don't say that figure. Don't quote me on that. It's too many numbers for the calculator. We don't do it.
Then like but obviously like now to implement this in the beginning, it needs like a massive like capital influx, right? Because obviously these databases are expensive to first build and construct and stuff. So I'm guessing,
Oh, you
yeah. So I'm guessing only like deep, massive companies can get into it, right?
Oh, so do you mean from like AWS side or from
I mean,
client
generally,
side?
like I mean, there's a reason why it's Amazon, Microsoft, and Google, right? They're all big companies with
Oh,
lots of money to actually implement this in the
oh,
first place.
yes. So in order to build a data center,
Yeah.
yes, the
Uh,
price is insane. Yeah. Building data centers require a lot of like, as I told you, like technical, first finding the area, building it, and then once you build it, you need a lot of technical capabilities in order to like set the whole data center up, because you build all the server racks. And then data centers themselves, as you said, they are a key. That's why they are classified as critical national infrastructure, right? Because they are key points of attack. So from a security perspective, you need to put a lot of security design, like around the clock guards, camera system,
Oh wow.
biometric IDs, someone like having only certain people having access to certain server racks. If some server racks are classified as highly critical, whereas like high classified government stuff, like no one can access it, and you need to have security around it. So like within the data center itself as well, you need to have a lot of security in there. And then a lot of other redundancies as well, like electrical, you need to have make sure that if it's cut out from the power supply, it can run by itself for like a couple of days just based on the backup. And then all that. There's loads of thinking that goes into building a data center. The reason I know some of the security things is because even though we don't have to deal directly with the data centers, when you're doing certain security certifications, like I'm currently trying to get my CSSP done, which is like a certified cloud security practitioner. In learning for that exam, it teaches you a lot about data center security as well. So it talks about a lot of these aspects that have to go behind securing a data center.
Right. Interesting. Interesting.
But yeah, that's true because they're the only ones with the money. They build it out, so sort of like it's very hard for someone else to come into it unless they have the capital. And even if they have the capital, it's not just building the data center now, right? AWS, they have this whole team that have built these managed services. All these managed services are obviously software. So they've built all these software offerings that make their cloud better to use. So why would someone who come in, what could they offer the
Yeah.
market? They'd have no kind of offering. So
True.
it'll be
True.
very hard to get these three big players out the game now.
Yeah.
Let
True.
me jump in and ask my favorite question, but I'll
I was
divide it
gonna
into
ask
two.
Rishi, why didn't you ask that yet?
So, of course, relating to AI, two questions regarding that in implementation of AI and how it's going currently. So, one
Hmm.
is how do you see it affecting this entire cloud space, and secondly, do you see yourself in well, having a job considering how AI is moving in the next 5-10 years as well?
Okay, interesting question. So first one is definitely like with AI moving, if anything, is going to create these cloud providers so much more money, so much more. And I say that primarily because I was talking about like NVIDIA partnered with AWS in last year and stuff, right? So AWS is AI offering, so this is to use their LLM models or to use their compute to run language models takes a lot of CPU usage, like insane amounts. And obviously, the more CPU you use, the more money Amazon goes, right? Because it's charging you for it. So all these cloud providers with ML models, AI models running and stuff, the amount of money they're racking up from bills is insane. I've seen it in house because we've started using some ML models and stuff as well. So the amount of money we spend monthly on ML models in our bills is equivalent to almost the rest of our whole estate because it
Wow.
costs that much. Yeah, because ML models are very resource intensive because it's basically a computer doing a human's mind thinking, right? In processing power. So that's how you got to think of it. It's doing that much processing, those language models. So that's the amount of basically charge that you'll get. So is there a space for the cloud providers in this new world? 100%. All the ML models, all AI will be running off some cloud, right? Because if you want to instantly connect to it, like ChatGPT, I'm sure ChatGPT is running off, if I'm not mistaken, OpenAI is Microsoft. I don't know, but I'm assuming off Azure cloud. That's where they're
All
running.
right.
So
Right.
they're all going to be running off some cloud provider because they need their language models to run somewhere, and they need the data that the language model is processing and going through stored somewhere. So it's obviously going to be in the cloud, well, on one of the cloud providers, if not their own in-house. I don't know what ChatGPT about, but yeah. So on the first question, 100%, cloud providers will get a huge boom, if anything, from the upcoming AI. Second, in terms of a job, that one's very interesting. So currently, I'm actually taking a service in, like, I'm working to get a service into our company that's actually an AI. So Amazon offered this AI called Q, and we're trying to use it for some of our services. It's called Q for Amazon. So it's their sort of like, how do you put it? Not chat, but it's their sort of like AI tool built on top of their console. So you can ask it questions, it does your coding for you and things of that sort. Like you can ask it things. It's very hard to say that it can take over our job right now, because you still need to prompt it a lot to get to the right answer that you want. It just won't do it. I can, so I current state, I'm struggling to see how it can take over like some of the engineering tasks that we have or some of the architecture tasks we do. It can help and it can aid, but I don't see it taking over.
Oh, that's good. To be fair, that's a good answer. I like both of them. For those who have not watched that movie, Will Smith, what's it called? I forget the name.
I
I
Human,
Robot.
I Robot. Oh, that was it.
I
Yeah, I
Robot. There we
Robot.
go. Yeah, go watch it. So enjoy yourselves now. They're gonna all be taken over by robots. So yeah, that's good to know.
And also, you mentioned
Right.
obviously these databases use a lot of power and a lot of energy. And so,
Mm.
is there anything about being more energy efficient and sustainability and all that, or does no one really care about that for databases?
Yeah, good point. I think when it comes to things like that, you always have to look at what companies do to offset, right? So they have the offset schemes and stuff. So when you look at that, you need to go check Amazon's. Like, obviously, maybe I shouldn't be saying this, but I'm not involved in that side of things, so I don't do it. I don't really care or look into that right now in terms of what I work. But yes, I'm pretty sure at the higher level when they're doing the contracts with Amazon and all the higher ups, they're talking because like we have a whole directorate just to do with ESG, right? It's sustainable governance that we do within our company itself. So I'm sure they've been in conversations with the firms that we partner in, not just Amazon, all the other providers we have in terms of what they are doing for their offset of whatever they do. And I'm pretty sure Amazon do it as well. So yeah, there'll definitely be conversations around that space. One good thing actually I've done recently to think about it is in our company we're trying to do cost savings when it comes to like all our cloud providers and stuff. So this is like, if where people are not using something, shut it off and things like that. So the way we're trying to drive that now is by making people think about what savings they could do in terms of like environment rather than cost saving, because cost saving doesn't directly infect people at work, right? Because the cost saving is comes out of the company's budget, not your own. But if you think about the environment, people will probably try and do more cost saving just because they think they're saving the environment. So that's kind of one approach we're trying to take now to drive people to do more cost saving, which is think about the environment rather than the cost.
Okay,
Hmm.
interesting.
Okay. Well, I mean, that was yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot in this discussion that was spoken of, which I had no clue about. Like, I mean, we obviously hear a lot about like the cloud and everything, and we're all using it on a daily basis, right? Through
Yes, yeah,
all
yeah.
our
Every like
development
when you
thing.
use Excel,
But
everything it just connects directly into, yeah.
yeah. But then there's so much behind it which we don't know about. Rishi, you have anything else to add, or you want to get on to the
Yes,
final?
actually, something on the side. With regards to VPNs, for example, how does that work when it comes? Does it connect to the different data centers, which are also run by, cloud and AWS, or how does that work? Because it usually directs you to a different location, different country. So how does that work?
Yeah, good question. I actually don't know too much about VPNs in terms of the what's behind it. So I doubt they run off data centers. It's because VPNs are basically all VPNs are doing is providing you a new IP. So it's changing your IP. VPNs are not actually storing your data. So it wouldn't be off data centers because you're not storing data. So that's why like when people say that VPNs protect you from like anything when you're browsing the internet, that's not true. Because VPNs only protect your home IP address. So people maybe don't know where you're coming from when you visit these sites. Other than that, it does no other protection for your laptop or computer or whatever using a VPN. All it does is masks your IP. So it'll give you another IP. Maybe that IP is porting off like some server that they have, but that's about it.
But what about your data? So, like, say if you're
No, VPN doesn't
working
protect.
or
Yeah,
no, that data, does it get saved within that similar location, or now that data
no.
gets saved somewhere else? So how does that, like? I don't get that.
VPNs have nothing to do with your data. It maybe may affect the transfer when you're like doing a communication, but in terms of storing data, VPN doesn't affect that at all.
All right,
A VPN, yeah.
interesting.
A VPN is essentially just a tunnel, like a virtual private network. So it's creating it rather than you tunneling directly. Like say you were talking to me right now, right? Through this Riverside or whatever software. So you connect into Riverside, like your IP is connecting there, and I'm connecting there. So we have a tunnel between you and Riverside and me and Riverside. What VPN would do is it would take you first to another IP, and then from that IP, it would mask you, and then it would put it from there to Riverside. So to Riverside,
Right.
it thinks you're coming from a different location, not from your home address in Kenya. That's what a VPN would do.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, that's
So,
good. It's good for me.
nice, Rishi. Then we can get on to the final segment.
Hey, yeah, bud.
Well,
time, time for our favorite rapid fire questions. We got some fantastic 7 questions for you. I hope you're ready. Even if you're not, well, they're coming at you. Now, the first question: if you could be any animal, mythical creature, whichever one, what would
Ooh,
you be and why?
mythical creature. Ooh,
Or animal doesn't have to be a mythical creature. Could be a slug
yeah.
for like here, like up to you.
No, I don't think I'd pick any normal animal. Mythical creature. Oh, dragon sounds cool, but I think I'd just be unicorn. I think I'd pick unicorn. I don't
A
know why.
unicorn. Why?
They just
No,
seem
but I said why.
majestic. Yes, yeah, they seem majestic and they can fly. Being able to fly would be pretty cool. And then you're also a horse, so you can run.
Beat that
If you
out.
get mad at someone, you can take the horn and poke them.
Nice.
Just poke, just poke. Okay, interesting one. Fair enough. All right, on to the second question. What is your dream company to work at?
Ooh, cream company. Wow. I've never really thought
Maybe
about this.
maybe he's already working at his dream company, but we can't reveal it.
Oh yeah, hey, you got the guys. This guy needs a promotion. There we go.
That's true. That's true. Loving it currently, but I don't know. I'd want to say like one of the Google and stuff because obviously they pay really well, but I don't think I have a dream company to be honest. I think my dream would just be nah, no dream company. Sorry.
Actually,
No, I like that. I like
is it
that answer.
yeah is it
Sorry.
common for like cloud architects and cloud employees in other companies to be poached by these like AWS and Azure to work on their side?
Oh yeah, the top level people who probably like the top level people who like are in charge of building stuff, they probably are. I don't know if they have non-competes in the agreement and stuff, all that. I'm not on that level, so I don't know, but I would assume so. Like the ones that are actually behind building the infra, then yeah, for sure.
This is on the cards,
Nice, interesting.
after all that you've spoken about today.
Oh, that's
Uh,
true.
Yep, yep. You know,
Jeff,
Jeff just hitting me up after
yeah,
this call. I see an unknown number call me, and then he's like,
bro's bold is getting a bit red. Getting excited. All right. So actually, a deep question here. So, how do you handle failures or setbacks?
"Oh wow, damn. How do I handle failures or setbacks?" I guess it is what it is. That's the way to deal with failures and setbacks. Just
You
think
send
about
a
it.
small blog to the cloud or AWS.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I think that's the best way. If you fail any failure or setback, it just think it's happened, nothing you can do about it, and just try to see what best you can do going forward. Just really try and move on from it. If anything, after a while, try and take any learnings from your failure. If you could, like, see what was the reason it went wrong and things like that. If not, just move on. One thing I realized is that you don't need to think about too much stuff because a lot of stuff is out of your hands. So you just gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah, I mean that's good advice. Fair enough, and yeah, it's relatable to be honest to a lot of people. All right. The fifth question: what is your favorite quote?
Ooh, favorite quote. Yeah. I don't know if it's really a quote. I just heard it somewhere, and I think it's very like prevalent and also how I
It's okay.
try and live
You can quote
my
it.
life. But it's tomorrow is never promised, so live today. That's the quote. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, that's very true. But
Yeah.
honestly, that's very true. Understand it how you may. Don't go crazy, but yeah, understand it how
Yeah,
you may.
no, exactly. It's not sort of like the same as YOLO, but it's also like, in proportion, but at the same time, you also you gotta remember to live, not just worry or stress about
so
the next day.
Now, actually, a very random, different question, but something, why not? So, second last question: what do you think happens after we die?
After we die. Ooh. Well, I guess just like anyone else, I would like to think
You'll
there's
no
an
no no
afterlife.
no you're gonna go into the cloud. That's where you're gonna go.
Oh. That's true. I'll just be there on one server. Actually, that's a good thing. By the time we die, who knows if they'll have the technology there to be able to move our mental thinking into like servers, like into the data center, so that we are actually living off the cloud then. So our whole
Uh,
consciousness would be on a server rack somewhere, and we're just constantly like, we'll meet like this in a chat room where all our servers connect into one, and we're all just chilling and talking. Maybe
Oh
we'll
wow.
get to that level one day.
And
But
I'm sure my mental capacity at that state, if we do meet, will just be saying, I don't have the capacity.
Uh,
very true,
Jeff,
very
Jeff, I
true.
hope you're listening, Jeff.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That would be ideal
uh,
scenario. No, but honestly, I would like to think there's an afterlife, but the reality of it probably is once you're dead, you're dead. So.
fair enough. Oh man. All right, on to the final question of this beautiful evening, morning, afternoon, wherever you are, it doesn't matter. But all right. So, if you could travel back in time, what period would you go to and why?
Ooh, what period? Um,
You could say hell nah. I mean, that's also an answer, but
no,
yeah.
this is rapid fire, so I should be quick, but I have to think about this. What time would I want to travel back to? You know what? I'd like to try and go back to the Mughal Empire in India to see how it is. Very prosperous time. Apparently, everyone lived well and stuff, so it'd be interesting time to go back. Also, because all we know about those times are from the history book, so maybe it was very different. Who knows? But because in
Wow.
recent time, I can't think of a time where I could go back where it's better than the times we live in now currently. To be honest.
You can help build the
Interesting.
Taj Mahal.
Oh no, no, I want my hands, please.
That's
I
interesting.
want my
Actually,
hands.
no. Regarding that question, I haven't asked Raju, you, and also myself. Like, I'm curious. What would be your answer for that question? If you could travel back in time, which period would you go to and why? I'm curious.
For me, I'm actually really curious to see how like my ancestors lived. So like not even like
Ooh.
grandparents, like great grandparents, great grandparents, and like how they lived
Hmm.
and like where they came from, and and was the what was the series of events that led me to reach to where I am
Move
or where
on.
my parents were at. Like, I find I'm very curious about that. So yeah,
That
that would
that
be
no, that's a very good point. I guess that brings. Let's not get into it, but that would bring into the question of if you move back and then go talk to your grandparents, would you ever be born?
that's true. That's true. You have to be
The
away.
linchpin effect. Yes, yeah,
Correct.
exactly.
Correct. That's
Oh, was
true.
it
Oh
a
wow.
butterfly effect? Sorry, yeah. But anyway, Rishi, go on.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
was your answer?
Yeah, mine's a bit crazy, but very, very specific. Mine would be during one of the Chinese dynasties or dynasties, wherever you are. So it would be during the Three
Mm.
Kingdom dynasties of when they were Wei, Wu, and Shu, and I would want to go into the Shu point in time, the Shu Empire, and that is the generals defending some of the greatest warriors ever known to mankind in China and Southeast Asia. So it was a time of absolute chaos,
Oh wow.
turbulence, fighting between empires. But at that point in time, trying to protect the people, and the greatest warriors came out of that. So being in that point in time, literally standing, fighting for a cause, would be, according to me, very thrilling. You're literally doing something that would
Wow.
affect generations to come
That.
and history to
Mm,
come. And right now, things are just crazy. I mean, you're
that's
seeing news.
that's very interesting because I think you'd want to go back to like the Spartan times or maybe like the Vikings and stuff. So it's interested you said the Chinese wars.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's hectic. But yeah, I feel like that time, things were harsh, real. But I feel nowadays, people are
Why is
losing
it
their,
hectic? Why is it
how do you
hectic?
say, their strength. No, honestly, like I genuinely feel nowadays things are very soft. Things are people becoming very weak and losing, track of
Yeah.
Yeah.
strength.
No, that's one thing, but one thing I've seen as well is that yes, I guess like financially and stuff, people say worse off now, but we're also one of the luckiest or kind of most prosperous generations in a way because like the ease of access we have to things, right? Like if you think back from now to even 100 years, even like someone that's not doing that well can still get kind of good healthcare. Like yes, for serious things maybe it's a bit harder now, but like you can still get kind of you have good access to medicine. You can go on the internet and find good ways like healthy living, access to food, like all those not food, but like access to information is a lot better now, which has made our lives a lot easier. So yes, I guess the financially over the time it's been that, but I think in terms of just informational society, I think we are quite lucky to be in this age right now.
Yeah, I agree. That's true.
So there was a very interesting quote I read the other time. and I'm sure a lot of people have seen it. It's like hard times create strong men create good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times.
Oh,
If you think
Oh
about it,
wow.
it's very
Oh,
true.
I
It's
like
it's,
that.
it's a circle of
yeah,
life,
yeah.
right?
Heard that one before, but yeah, no, yeah, yeah.
I mean that's again what I'm referring to. Like literally, currently, I feel like we're, you know, in that situation of how weak men will create hard times to come, or good times.
That are
Sorry, as
harder.
you said,
Okay.
we are in good times, right? So good times create weak men, and then weak men will create hard times, and the cycle goes on and on. So I mean, let's see what
Yeah,
happens.
yeah.
Let's see what comes to be. We'll be watching from the cloud, but let's see what
No, that's
happens.
a good. Yeah. That's very philosophical. Discussion for another time
Yes.
with
Indeed,
alcohol.
indeed.
Yes.
But yes,
And I'll
that
call you
is it
for
from me
spot
with
two.
the rapid fire questions. Raju.
Yeah, no, nice. This was wow, this was a really informative podcast. Thank you, David, for your insights. We
Hmm.
It's been very valuable indeed.
Cool. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah.
Cool. Speak soon.
Yeah, and also just finally, just to end off, to everyone listening, thank you for listening. We are on, so we are on YouTube and Spotify. So if you're on YouTube, subscribe to us. If you're on Spotify, give a rating. Follow us on Instagram, and we have a lot of exciting episodes coming up as well. So stay tuned.
Yeah, and as usual, if you want to join us, reach out to us. If you want to ask Mr. DC, Mr. David Coelho, I call him. If you want to tell him anything, reach out to us. Feel free, and it'll be a pleasure to have you guys listening in or joining us with this podcast. And yeah, that's it from me. Thank you very much, our special guests. Raju, take us home.
Yes, and yes, again, thank you everyone for listening, and we will see you in the next episode. Bye bye.